It's Tuesday, the 25th of April, 2023, Anzac Day. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's jump into story number 1. Australia will spend an extra $19 billion over the next 4 years to boost our defences for future conflicts, following the release of the government's Defence Strategic Review.
Australia needs a defence force focused on maritime and amphibious missions with long-range strike weapons. The biggest review into defence in 35 years says there's only a remote possibility of an invasion, but warns that the use of military force or coercion against Australia doesn't require an invasion. It mentions cyber warfare and disruption to trade and supply routes as examples. Now, the government has identified 6 priority areas which it will be chasing. The review released yesterday recommends scrapping, delaying or scaling back 30 defence projects to save nearly $8 billion to help fund the increased spend.
Defence is obviously a very expensive business, Sean. What's all this mean for the budget?
Under the proposals in the review, defence spending will rise above 2% of GDP over the next decade. Now, defence is already one of the big budget items. We spend about $48 billion a year, along with health and aged care, interest payments and the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It does recommend buying more off-the-shelf items with less focus on building locally. The review is critical of the defence budget management of the former government, saying it left behind about $42 billion in defence funding over the next decade that wasn't paid for, Michael.
There's a lot more spending, obviously, but does this report change the way we think about defence?
Yes, it drops the 50-year-old Defence of Australia doctrine in favour of a new approach known as national defence, which calls for a whole-of-government approach to maintaining a regional balance in the Indo-Pacific. The review says it requires deepening diplomatic engagement and stronger defence capabilities to help deter coercion and lower the risk of conflict. It says the US is no longer the unipolar leader of the Indo-Pacific, and America's competition with China is the defining feature of the region. Importantly, it attempts to better integrate the Army, Navy and Air Force and move Australia's defence forces beyond what the review calls a bygone era.
Okay, on to story number 2 now. And Westpac, Australia's second largest home lender, has called an end to slumping house prices, but has warned that the housing market will remain on edge.
Chief Economist Bill Evans, who had previously said prices would fall more, now expects prices to be flat this year with a sustained recovery in 2024. Australia's housing correction is largely over, several factors combining to produce stabilisation, Evans said in a market update yesterday, before adding that he expects prices to rise by about 5% next year. He said increased migration, rising construction costs and a lower level of supply were contributing to the market stabilisation. Prices nationally were up nearly 1% in March. They're tracking for a similar gain in April, according to Westpac. The price gains, though, are lopsided. Now, they're centred on Sydney, where upper-tier markets are leading the way, but Westpac said all major capital city markets have now seen prices stabilise or even post small rises over the past 3 months.
All right, story number 3. Funeral services company InvoCare's share price fell 8% yesterday after private equity group TPG withdrew its $1.8 billion buyout proposal.
But that doesn't mean it's not hanging around. TPG holds almost 20% of InvoCare and has asked for a seat on the board of the group, which runs national brands including White Lady Funerals and Simplicity Funerals, as well as several state brands. In a statement, InvoCare said it is still willing to consider any proposal that represents good value for shareholders. The InvoCare board has remained steadfast in its view that it's not prepared to grant TPG full due diligence because the $12.65 a share proposal doesn't deliver compelling value. InvoCare's share price closed at $11.18 yesterday.
Story number 4, Sean, not a bad day yesterday at all for BlueScope Steel, upgrading its half-year earnings by a heck of a margin.
Yes, 40%, Michael, thanks to its North Star steel mill in the US. Now, steel prices are higher while output is expanding. Good news for BlueScope. The group has just completed a $1 billion expansion of North Star. That added about 850,000 tonnes of extra capacity to its production facilities in Ohio. It's been steadily bringing that extra capacity online. The group's US operations had a slow start to the financial year with depressed pricing as US car makers were restricted due to the shortage in availability of semiconductor chips and other parts in the supply chain. That, of course, reduced the output of cars. That's now turned around.
Okay, last one. Story number 5, Sean. Investors and airline watchers have been waiting for a return to the skies by the Chinese, and the early signs are very positive.
Now, last week, Graham Turner, head of Flight Centre, said international airfares will start falling in earnest only when the Chinese start travelling again. Well, looks like it might be happening. About 170 million Chinese holidayed overseas in 2019 pre-pandemic. Last year, that was just 9 million. But already 9 million passenger trips are expected during the Golden Week holiday starting next week. Now, market watchers have taken that to mean Chinese travellers are back, and as Graham Turner said, that should mean lower prices across the board.
Okay, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 25th of April, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, the Amazon Echo smart speaker range comes with Alexa built in. Simply say, Alexa, play the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed podcast to catch the latest episode, and you can grab yours now at amazon.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.